Welcome back to Amazin But True, our New York Mets podcast from the New York Post. I'm your host, Jake Brown, alongside my co-host, former Met Nelson Figueroa. Those highlights you heard courtesy of Pix 11 after, could you believe it, a New York Mets victory. What are those? What are those? Well, a win is a win is a win is a win. It may have not been pretty, but took till 10 innings. And we'll talk about the whole weekend as a whole, but the Mets do win Sunday night after a 4.5-hour delay, or actually, I guess it was 4 because of a 140 game. It was 140 throwing me off. Started 5:30. Made it in time for the podcast, and joining us a little bit later in the show will be Mets' 9th-round pick. He led the nation in RBIs. That'll be Nick Lorusso is going to join the program, the University of Maryland Terrapin product. We're looking forward to talking to Nick, and his agent hops on, Joseph Guzman, as well. Figgy, but they had a win Sunday. It was a must-win for the Mets, and finally, Figgy, Max Scherzer was vintage Max Scherzer, pre-Mets Max Scherzer, pre-September 2022 Max Scherzer. The guy that earned $40+ million showed up with 7 dominant shutout innings of one-hit ball. We'll talk about the 8th in a minute with Gott blowing it. But Luis Guillorme walks it off. Figgy, it felt good to finally get back in the winning column after a 4-game losing streak. And now, as we keep saying every week, you gotta string wins together with the trade deadline 2 weeks away from now. When you listen to the show, it's now or never when the White Sox come to Citi Field on Tuesday.
Yeah, it's an easy one on the schedule, right? It's just the lowly White Sox. None of these games are easy because the Mets continue to play up or down to the level of their competition, right? We've seen it time and time again. But it was great to see Scherzer, vintage Scherzer. No, I'm still partial to the Scherzer that used to punch out a dozen. He only struck out 6, so half a dozen. I'll take it. 7 innings going deep into the ball game. I think he could have went out there for the 8th, at least started the 8th.
97 pitches. I mean, I don't know why he wasn't.
Well, 97 pitches and you finish on a good note, right? So I think you take that one hit, the Dodgers. That's not an easy task. This is a team that puts the ball in play. They don't strike out a ton. Like I said, only 6 strikeouts. He did a really good job of keeping them off balance. And, he found his slider today. So he's been missing that slider all season long, complaining about how it's not spinning nearly as tight as in years past. And I don't know if he was looking for excuses before, but if that's the pitch that is getting you in trouble, stop using it. And today I saw him when he fell behind in the count, he was using his changeup to get back into the count and then putting guys away with that slider. One of the nastiest ones he threw with Freddie Freeman. That's vintage type slider cutter with that darting action. When he's able to do that, then that's a pitch that he can use and is very serviceable and can, continue to keep hitters off balance. But I think what we saw out of him was he was confident with all his stuff. It wasn't perfect. I was watching some of the, I think they did a highlight when they were about to pull him out after the 7th. And Ronnie was saying, he was pinpoint with all of his pitches and when they're showing the replay and balls were missing their locations, but they were swinging and missing and things like that. So wasn't perfect, but he got better as the game went on and he continued to find a way to use all his pitches and keep those hitters off balance. That's what he's capable of doing.
And Scherzer talked about that slider that you said stop throwing. Well, it seems like he's figured out the problem. Let's go from, the agent Guzman to our intern, Nick Guzman. Nick, let's hear what Scherzer had to say about that slider after the game.
As you start, connecting the dots of why I've been hanging sliders. The other pitch has been, pretty good, but I've been, like I said, I've been getting beat on sliders and sliders in the zone. I couldn't figure it out for the life of me because the whole time I keep thinking in my head that I'm executing these things down away and they're hanging, and so it's, at least I think I found out today what that issue is, and that's been my left foot, and so that's the simplest, stupidest answer there is, but that's pitching.
Biggie, explain what that means as a pitcher, what he's talking about with his left foot and how that affected the slider.
Well, what I think it has to do with is 2 things. There's 2 things that happens with your left foot, whether it's his stride length, and if he's overstriding, trying to reach out and make that pitch move a little bit extra. By overstriding, you wind up making your release point a little bit further back. That means that the ball is going to be hanging. You don't get the ball to go downward. It loses that sharpness.
The other thing is direction. The left foot provides you direction. So if he's landing across his body, but on his slider, maybe he's pulling open a little bit, that leaves your arm behind as well. And the ball winds up just spinning in place. And those are the balls that get hit a long, long way. So I think he's going to crossfire a little bit more, keep himself a little more closed towards a right-handed hitter, say, and be able to deliver the ball down and away across his body where he can yank that ball a little bit at the end and get that downward bite that he's looking for his slider.
That's pitchhub.com here. Amazing but true podcast with Nelson Figueroa. Yeah, I mean, he needed it. And listen, this is a guy that we talked about. If they become sellers, he's on the trade block. So if the Mets, only are winning on Scherzer days, then Scherzer could be on another team in 2 weeks. And that's going to be an interesting thing to watch if they do become sellers. Like he said, it's up to Steve. If he says sell, then he might waive that no trade clause and want to go to winner because Scherzer, Verlander, these veterans, those are really the two veterans, the near 40-year-olds who are not going to want to be on a meaningless team for 2 months where they can maybe go elsewhere. Scherzer's really the one guy, but Verlander again Friday, a very lackluster outing. It seems like he just cannot get into the 6th inning. He was over 100 pitches in the 5th inning, laboring, and it was rough to watch. But, outside of that, the real story this weekend, this team couldn't hit. I mean, we keep saying when they pitch, they don't hit. When they hit, they don't pitch. They pitched decently, but could not hit this weekend. I mean, 4 hits combined Friday, Saturday. Sunday, it took a Luis Guillorme walk-off on an infield in when they probably shouldn't have been. When finally the bunt was on, when it wasn't on Saturday with Mark Canha, 1st and 3rd, no out in the 8th inning. Can you please send the bunt sign for the love of Jake Brown? Do it for me, Buck. I mean, do something different. Your team is trash. Like we gave the stats out last week with a runner at 3rd and no out, 1 out. They stink. With 2 outs, they're good. I mean, those at bats, Canha first pitch, pop out. Mm-hmm. Beatty, lefty, 3 swings that weren't major league swings. And then Luis Guillorme looked like he didn't even belong at Syracuse. He belonged with the Rumble Ponies on those swings against the lefty. And, they were man down with Marte out with the sickness, so they were kind of screwed. But the bats looked bad Saturday. For most of Sunday, they looked bad. And, the key guys, Figgy, I mean, your guys, Pete Alonso is about to be at the interstate. I mean, he's about to be at 200. And your best hitters, who you hope would be carrying you, have just been absolutely dreadful this weekend. And I was trying to pull up the exact number, but I think they're like 2 for 27 since the All-Star break. Lindor, McNeil, 2 for 29. That's a nice, but not nice, 069 since the All-Star break. You need your stars to hit. You can't just have these starters pitch good and the back end pitch good.
Yeah, we said before that the break may come at an unfortunate time, right? They won 6 in a row. They head into against the Padres. They lose 2 out of 3 there as well, but still, it was on a good note. The way that they were playing, they were scoring a ton of runs. Lindor was catching fire. McNeil was waking up. We saw a lot of good things. Alvarez was hitting the cover off the ball. Since they've come back, and Pete has been a very big question mark. We keep giving him a pass. This was a guy that we thought would hit around 270, 275, drive in 100, hit over 30, 40 home runs.
He's at 207 right now.
Yeah, it's getting worrisome, and you can see it. You could see it on him. You could see it. It's affecting his defense even. His defense has been getting a little shaky. He's been making bad throws, bad plays, making errors uncharacteristically. And you see the pressure mounting on him because he knows he's one of the guys that has to step up. So, I never thought, he would look like Dave Kingman. We're getting into those kind of numbers for batting average, on base percentage. He's got to get on. These guys have to figure out a way to have better at bats. Get a work a walk in there every now and then, not bunt necessarily, but on base percentage is a big deal, especially at the top of that lineup. You've got to get on, man. And if they're not going to give you anything to hit, quit chasing, quit popping up in the infield, quit trying to do something that you're not capable of. It's really getting frustrating. I can't even imagine how frustrated he is, because he keeps going back and he feels like he's just missing pitches. It's like him and Vogelbach switched all of a sudden. By the way, unless the Mets don't win unless Vogie's in. That's the way it works, right? You've seen him in his last, I guess it was before the Padres series. He was in those last 2 games in
I'm not going to go that far.
Arizona.
Let's
He
not
was.
get dramatic about
He
it.
was. I got a buddy who texts me all the time. He goes, "You want to win? Put Vogie in." And then again,
then you got to waste a guy pinch running for him.
But then again today, well, did it work?
He got a hit. It's not like it won them the game.
He got a hit. Stewart stole the base. Of course, Marte missed the hanging slider, so it could have been over much sooner. But the fact is that they won the game. Gourmet comes through the bunt attempt where he gets a ball thrown at him. He wasn't a big fan of that, of course, but then he goes out there and he sits on something soft and away, pulls it down the right field line. And as you said earlier, all's well that ends well. So they need every game that they can possibly get. So there is no little victories. There is no meaningless victories. They've got to find a way to catch fire again and do more than 6 in a row. They got to start putting more like 8 or 10 in a row together.
And Saturday night, I was on fire at the ballpark. You saw I tweeted a reaction video because it was worthy after the game. Might have been a few glasses of Pinot Grigio in on the night on Saturday. But, this team right now is 8.5 out, 43-50. Of course, you got to beat the White Sox this week. It's really getting enough of you got to win a series. You really got to start sweeping somebody, and it starts with the White Sox coming to town. And, I did say in the reaction Saturday, I'll go Tuesday for the basketball jersey giveaway, and then I'm done. And, of course, I was there Sunday. But I love a sweet, they had mac and cheese, braised short rib mac and cheese, and freaking look at these, just cinnamon sugar pretzels.
Whoa.
I know this looks a little graphic right now if you're watching on video, but this with icing right now was unbelievable. Like,
did you get that from TJ Rivera's locker?
No, there was no rally dildos, but there were. The cinnamon. Look at this thing. I'll take a bite right now since they warm up.
Oh, I can't wait. Oh, God.
It is delicious. So people are asking where I got it from.
What is wrong with you?
This is some good ASMR right here. I'm telling you, this is a bold thing. Better than the churro nachos.
What?
This has topped the churro nacho, which, by the way, no longer available. They replaced it with salad. Salad. Who goes to a baseball game and says, "I'll have a Caesar salad, please"? What do you like? The vinaigrette or balsamic? I don't even know the titles of these. I don't eat salad. Salad. And I feel bad because the lady who runs it, I was roasting the place. I was like, "Oh man, I missed the churro nachos. What are the salads?" She's like, "Oh, you should eat healthy." I'm like, "Damn, you call me fat? You're right."
Yes, you did.
And I was like, "But I want to eat unhealthy." I was like, "Does your restaurant have anything unhealthy?" And she's like, "No, it's all healthy. It's good for you." I'm like, "Damn it, she's calling me a fat ass." So they had these healthy, like not even milkshakes. They were like those like healthy drinks, purple with a bunch of veggies in it. And then it was called a goddess wrap, but it was nothing but a goddess. It was all vegetables. It was like all these different things. It wasn't like chicken parm in there. It was something nasty. Anyways, better than the churro nachos. Now, they only have them in the sweets, but they have a version of this, which I didn't realize. Hartz tweeted it upstairs. I got to pull up the name. Hold on.
Good God.
Called The Twist. So you could do the twist. He said it's in section 417. And the Piazzi Club, in case you're not as bougie as Jake, which he's right. But easily the best thing. Anyway, I went off on a food tangent there. I got a little excited.
Odd. Very odd.
Per the norm. Let me put this down. My fingers again. But yeah, you see the cinnamon on there. It's very good. Anyway, so here's
Nick,
why I've been the rant. Because
Nick,
yes.
Welcome, Nick. Welcome to our world. This is what we have to deal with. Welcome.
Nick goes to the ballpark too, and one of the things we were talking about for the show, like Sunday, great, they won a game, and you could talk about with this team, of course they had to hit more this week and they didn't hit enough, but in these close games, Buck Showalter has pushed every wrong button in sight. If there are two doors, one is death, the other survival. He's been choosing death every time, like at one of those like Disney movies. Like where the magical door open, the line, The Witch in the Wardrobe. He's been on the wrong side of the wardrobe. That was a terrible reference. Anyways. Sunday, Max Scherzer pitching to Jen. 97 pitches.
Yep.
Instead of leaving him in even for one or two batters, that's option one. Instead of going to Brooks Raley, who's been your second best reliever after David Robertson. Instead of going for David Robertson for 6 outs, who hasn't pitched in 9 days, he decides to go to Trevor Gott.
Who?
The guy who just got here.
Got
here, and he got. He's got a career 4.55 ERA. In a one-run game, it bothers me. Like, where is the sense of urgency? Buck Showalter manages sometimes like it's April or May and not a game you need to win. And that pissed me off. But Saturday, to not get that runner home was like, Figgy, I mean, you were watching. Infuriating. First and third, no out. Tana first pitch, pop up, strikeout. I know you make fun of me for saying bunt, but like, do something different. Try something different. And then to add insult to injury, leading up to that, I mean, DJ Stewart, we talked about why is he here, drops a fly ball in right field, and his foot and the ball happen to be just on the left side of the line. It turns into a double. That run scores. Ottavino blows it. And then Brett Beatty drops a pop-up in the ninth, and that was when it was over.
Because of that, right?
Well, listen, it's the Ringley, Barn, and Bailey circus. It's a strict comedy of errors. Sunday, they get lucky because Nimmo, it's a double play, but the pitcher drops it. That scores a run. And then, like I said, the infield in on 2 strikes probably should have been back. It's been a comedy of errors. And like we keep saying, put a string of wins together. But Figgy, this doesn't look like a team capable of it. It doesn't look like a team managed to do it. Buck talked about, I wouldn't call them bad at bats Saturday. He makes media people feel dumb when they question his decisions, when everyone's questioning them. I don't know. I just don't know anymore about this guy. And if they don't make the playoffs, it seems like he'll probably be gone. But, you know, I thought if they lost Sunday, Monday might be firing. But it's just a string and comedy of errors and not enough adjustments from this team. And it's bothersome. And I'll correct an adjustment that we need to make, that Barnes is the hitting coach, not Chavez, like we said last week. So the approach is bad. The managing is bad. I'm not confident, Figgy, they could put a string of 14 out of 16 games together, get over 500 and turn this thing around.
Yeah, no, it's an uphill battle. That's without a doubt. You know, you want to see the guys that are going to be expendable playing better, but if they're playing better and they're helping you win, are they expendable? It's a big catch-22, but I think it goes down to the wire. Who they wind up trading, anybody on a 1-year deal, anybody who they're not going to save any money on it. They're probably going to have to pay down those contracts to get any kind of prospect back, just to take them off their hands. So, you know, Uncle Stevie said that money's already spent. It was budgeted for. It's already spent. So he's not worried about it. And at the same time, if he can get assets back, then they're going to pay, you know, most of their contract anyway and make sure that they get a better type of prospect. So there are some guys that, you know, will be in not high demand, but there's going to be a fallout after Ohtani goes somewhere. That's for sure. You know, there's going to be a fallout after, you know, maybe you hear Juan Soto's name being mentioned. So after those big premier guys are going, there's got to be, you know, other guys. Remember, the Braves went out there when Acuna went down, and they went out and got 4 guys who weren't on career years, weren't doing anything otherworldly, but they've had some experience before of playing at a high level. And they put those guys together, carried themselves to a World Series, and each of those guys got pretty good contracts afterwards. So I think that's one of the scenarios that you see happening, the more likely scenario of things happening where they're going to be sellers rather than buyers. And then what is it going to be? Is it time to tear it all down to the studs, or is it, you know, are they going to try and reload? I think that a new baseball ops person is going to have a huge say in what direction that this team is going. Epler has tried, you know, they won 101 games. This might be the craziest thing, right? Manager of the year, 101 games, next year fired. And is that all put on him? No, obviously the player's performances dictated.
But am I being too harsh on Buck? Like, am I right here? Do you see what I'm seeing? Like, he just is not the same manager.
Well, I don't know if it's not the same manager. There are always internal things, and I'm feeling in my heart of hearts, he is not in the same amount of command as he was last year. In my heart of hearts,
the locker room a little bit.
Not lost the locker room. I wouldn't say that. I think more so that the analytics department got beefed up in the offseason because they won 101 games, so they want to do more analytics. Remember, a lot of the minor league coaches that had major league experience got fired, and they brought in a lot of guys who are very big on analytics and numbers savvy type coaches and managers. So I think that narrative is getting pushed down, is getting pushed across Buck's desk more and more. And it seems to me like a lot of it is him, saying things like, he's kind of misdirection with his quotes now. Like he's trying to steer you away from what's obvious in front of you, that this team isn't doing things the same way they were doing it. And it's not the coaching staff, right? The coaching staff is pretty much still the same. It's not Buck normally, but some of these moves, they leave you scratching your head, right? Of the guys that he's using, the guys that are even up here right now, and the personnel. If you're in a win now mode and by all costs, then why do you have certain guys up here right now and you don't have a more talented, younger, exciting type of bunch? When you were all about the baby Mets just a few months ago, now it's like Vientos is still doing his thing down there. You still have Mauricio, but you're holding their trade value to what? You're not going to be able to lure the big fish here when you're 15 games out of 18 games out of first place. But
it's starting to get ridiculous how he's not here and DJ Stewart is here dropping pop-ups. Like, what is going on?
I can't. Listen.
And Tommy Pham not in the IL, but he can't play the field. Like, you're just wasting a roster spot. Tommy Pham's unavailable. Like, what is with the Mets and being a man down, Figgy? I mean, that should be the title of their memoir this season. One man down.
That's another thing, right? And that's one of the things that goes to, again, roster construction, the moves that are made. A manager, I used to say this about Terry Collins all the time. I said Terry Collins is basically a poker player. If you give him the right cards, he plays a good hand. But if you give him terrible cards to play, you give him Campbell and Mayberry and all those guys, what do you want him to do with that? What are you expecting him to do with that? It's very difficult to manage when you're underhanded. It's very difficult to manage when you're understaffed with the level of players that you see to your right and your left of what are your options. And then I think that the options are listed for him in the way that they are to be used or not used. It just doesn't seem, like you said, the urgency isn't there. He knows the reality of what's going on. He knows there's no reason. I get it. You got Trevor Gott in a trade. Well, we got to put him in here if it's the 8th inning. You know what I'm saying? He's a former closer. We got to see what we got in him. No, you don't. You don't have to. Okay. And even after the second guy, I know you can't pull him out. He has to face 3 guys, but you couldn't come out fast enough to turn him over.
And listen, Saturday, 2-1 game, Grant Hardwick. And listen, Grant Hardwick's been good, but what are you doing there? Like, just the sense of urgency. And it's almost like he's managing to get fired so he can get paid for the rest of his check and head to Aruba. That's how Buck has been managing, because going to Grant Hardwick and Trevor Gott against a World Series championship contender in the Los Angeles Dodgers with the lethal lineup that they have, who are now going to run through and grab the NL West because the Diamondbacks are struggling and have come down to earth and the Dodgers are the Dodgers. It's just not a good manager. And it's bizarre because it seemed he pushed the right buttons last year. And you do wonder what the offense is changing from Chavez to Barnes. Now, Chavez went to bench coach, had to get the upgrade because other teams wanted to grab him, got the pay bump. I've heard that he's still involved with the offense, but you wonder if changing to Barnes has changed the approach, the more analytics, the money they put into that, like you talked about, has that changed things? Because this team just looks like they have a different approach. Your big hitters are struggling. This isn't the same offense that works 3-2 counts all the time. Figgy, you're just not.
Yeah, well, we even talked about this with Vogelback, right? They give him the mental break, and when he was talking during the mental break, he was saying how they were looking at the numbers, and his hard hit percentage was right there, and it was. He was second on the team, I think, to Pete Alonso. But it doesn't matter what your hard hit percentage is if you're not swinging the bat, right? How many times have we seen him take strike 3 or take the good pitches down the middle and then swing at balls in the dirt? Those kinds of things. So he said it was a matter of approach. I'm the same guy. And he came out and he swung great in Arizona. And you were thinking, all right, he's turning it around a little bit. And I'm not sit here to be like, oh, well, Vogie's figured it out. But there's a point in time where the analytics or the numbers of how to play baseball or how to hit a baseball and play baseball are 2 different things. You know what I'm saying? Like, in case in point, Guillorme today, that swing. Do I care what the exit velo was on that?
No.
Do I care if the guy was playing in the wrong place, in the wrong position? No. What I care about is put the bat on the ball, put the ball in play, made something happen. It's a game winner. Right. So that there's the element of playing baseball. It's an old school feel. It's a simple concept. See the ball, hit the ball. He just had a cutter thrown at him, to shake him up while he was trying to bunt. They were hoping that he would bunt the ball up in the air or pop it up or whatever. And, that's one of the things that you want from your players is, hey, I got to take a step back. I know the pitch clock is running, but I got to get back in there, know what I'm trying to do. And he did a great job of that today. So I need – look at the Yankees. We were talking about this on WPIX with Sean Casey being the guy. Why Sean Casey of all people? Well, he talks baseball. He knows baseball. He struggled. He had success. He knows all these things. You have a hitting coach who changed over their whole hitting philosophy from minor league level onto the big leagues, and he's never put on a uniform. He's never swung a bat. He's never had to get booed. DJ LeMahieu does not want to be booed. He's not a 200 hitter. This is a guy who's a Silver Slugger Award winner, a guy who hits the ball opposite field. So you take those kinds of things and you move it over to different organizations. And yeah, they're building out all these coaching staffs. You have an assistant to this guy, assistant to that guy, a game strategist, a quality control guy. There's so much over coaching that baseball gets clouded in it. And the simplest thing to do is see ball, hit ball, put the ball in play.
And bunt ball. And you make fun. This team is so bad with small ball. And yeah, I mean, listen, that's like saying, I studied like nutrition and I'm a nutritionist and never mind. I'm not going to make the reference. I was going to say something about salad. That didn't make any sense. Anyway, but yeah, it's a guy who's never done it. And that's why I think Sean Casey was a great hire. Guy was a great hitter and he's done it before, so that's why, guys like Jeremy Hefner, he wasn't a great pitcher, but he pitched for a while and he's the pitching coach. But enough of the coddling. Buck Showalter on Brett Beatty's circus pop-up drop. It's not as easy as it may look. It starts out in foul territory and drifts all the way back where you saw it ended up. Brett Beatty said, I got to make that catch. If Beatty's saying it, you could call him out too. Your own players shouldn't be calling him out, and the manager's saying the opposite. They're just not on the same page there. And then, when he said I wouldn't agree with non-competitive just because there was a result we hope we get, competing their butt off is not easy. Ferguson's a really good pitcher. I mean, you can't keep babying the guys. You're 8.5 games out of a third wild card, and you're $1 billion out of the division. Now's the time to be like, we sucked. You guys need to be better. Let's get to work. Because if you're going to say, oh, it was great, it was a tough play, they're thinking, oh, my boss thinks that was fine that I dropped the ball. It was a tough play. That's not a winning mindset. That's not a championship mindset. And there's a mental part of this game. So I think Buck has to be better. It's amazing but true. Jake Brown, Nelson Figueroa. The Mets will take on the White Sox this week. I mean, they just can't catch a break. Jose Quintana, flu-like symptoms, has now been pushed back to Thursday for his debut, Thursday afternoon. I'll have a podcast after the game that'll drop on Thursday night. It'll be Carrasco, Verlander, Quintana against a 15-game under 500 White Sox. Like, really go sweet. And I'll go Tuesday. I'll get my Mets basketball jersey because I have been looking forward to that giveaway. I'm sure it's going to be a crappy jersey. But I just found out my buddy Charles Jenkins, who played in the NBA, Hofstra legend, the greatest player in Hofstra history, he'll be there. So we'll see Charles Jenkins and we'll get a basketball jersey and hang with the Hofstra basketball legend. So that'll be coming up this week. And speaking of a college legend, this guy had 105 RBIs for the University of Maryland Terrapins this past season. He was the Mets' 9th round pick in the Major League Baseball draft, and his name is Nick Lorusso. And he's going to join Amazin But True next. Welcome back, Amazin But True podcast. Jake Brown, Nelson Figueroa here with our special guest in the building today on the show. My brother went to the University of Maryland. So by my brother, I'm a Terps fan. I went to Hofstra and we weren't very good at sports, and we got rid of my football team after my freshman year. So I did root for Maryland, and this guy was drafted in the 9th round this year by the New York Mets. He was a third baseman for the Terrapins and a Monroe, Connecticut native. Massac High School. I lived in Trumbull. We got the Connecticut connection. We got the Terps connection. The only connection we don't have is I was not first in NCAA in RBIs with 105. I did not hit 379 last year in 61 games. I did not steal 3 bases. I did have a 446 OBP. And I wasn't one of the first D1 players in 20 years to get 100 RBIs, but this guy was. Let's welcome to the show, to Amazin But True, Nick Lorusso. Nick, how you doing, man? Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. Doing great.
Yeah, it's good to have you on. Welcome to the New York Mets. Congratulations. We won't admit that you were a Yankee fan growing up, but you were. Now you have to make the switch. It's fine. Adam Ottavino was too, and he's made it just fine. And you're here with your agent, Joseph Guzman, Empowerment Sports Group. Thanks, Joseph, for setting up. Joseph's in the 115-degree heat. You are bowling at Duffy's in Port St. Lucie and maybe getting half off apps at Applebee's and enjoying the heat of Florida. What's it like so far? I mean, you're a couple weeks in here. What was the feeling when you got your name called by the New York Mets?
Definitely an amazing experience, but definitely a difficult one too. I had a bunch of friends drafted, whether it was from Maryland or from Villanova, where I previously was, that told me the process was a little hard and a little difficult at times. And, I kind of took that with a grain of salt and was like, you know what, I'm ready for whatever. But, as the draft kept going along, it definitely was a pretty difficult process. But, hearing my name called by, such a great organization in the New York Mets, I couldn't be happier.
So when you heard your name was called by New York and it wasn't the Yankees, was that a little bit of a downer?
Maybe a little bit. Childhood dream, but I've been to New York plenty of times. What a city. What great fans as well. And I'm excited to work my way through the minors and hopefully get there one day.
Figgy, you were undrafted, right?
Whoa, watch your mouth.
I just want to make sure I have that right.
30th round draft pick out of a Division III school. And yes, I've played in the major leagues. What did you do again?
I ate a really good cinnamon pretzel with icing tonight at the game, actually. So I think I win tonight. But you wait till 276, and baseball is different. 9th round is not that deep. But was it like frustrating? Did you think you were going to go there? Were you happy going there? I don't know how rounds work in baseball, like the NFL or NBA. But what was that wait like? And were you happy where you went?
Yeah, so definitely, like you said, it's very different. It's not necessarily the best player off the board first. Money's involved in all of it. But throughout the whole process, I was hearing kind of rounds 5 to 7, and as round 7 went by, and I didn't get a call. My stomach dropped a little bit, but as the 8th round started rolling on, we heard from plenty of teams. All with high interest, and that we heard from before. And as soon as I gave an offer that, they liked, a bunch of these teams said yes. And I knew my name was going to come off the board soon. But, like you said, again, the New York Mets, just terrific organization throughout the years. And, I couldn't be happier where I am right now.
And now what's the plan? Did they tell you exactly where you're headed?
Not yet. We're doing all the physical tests and all the, EKGs and all that. But, they'll tell us that within the next couple of days, I'm sure.
Yeah, I know one of the things, you're going from Division I program, and the numbers that you put up are unbelievable to think that you would last that long. And, that's it's not only frustrating, but at the same time, I think for myself as a 30th round draft pick, I sat back and it was, worrying about the money. And I remember the negotiations were very easy. The scout, Paul Beretta, may rest in peace, said, we've got $2,500 for you and your last year of school paid for. And I'm like, I'm looking more like 25 grand. I got to buy something for mom and dad. And he's like, yeah, about 2,500 and the last year of school paid for. And I kept going back and forth. And finally, my mom said, what do you want to do? What have you always wanted to do? I want to be a professional baseball player. And who's giving you an opportunity? The New York Mets. And growing up as a Met fan, I was like, that's all I need. So just to get your foot in the door, and now it's all up to you what you're able to do with it, right? So that bonus doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what people get paid once the signings are done. Now, what do you plan to do once you get there to make sure that you knock that door down?
Yeah, like you said, the money doesn't really matter. And to me, at this point, everybody's the same. Whether you're a 1st round pick or a 20th round pick, they're all going to treat you the same. And you're all at the same starting point right now. Obviously the guys with a little bit more money and higher, draft picks may have a little bit more leverage, but at the same point, we're all working, as hard as we possibly can to, get to that next step and get to that next level. Cause, ultimately we all want to be competing for championships at the big league level.
You'll be 23 next year, correct? So do you feel like you might have the edge because you did have more experience? Like Figgy said, I mean, your numbers, number 1 in homers, number 1 RBIs, number 1 at bats, number 1 total base, number 1 extra base hits, number 1 with a 31 game hitting streak. It's pretty damn good. Do you feel like the extra years, a lot of guys leave early, and you being there could give you a leg up on some of the competition?
Yeah, absolutely. And with that experience comes confidence. And I feel like that's something that, skyrocketed throughout the entire year this year, is that, when I got out, I got myself out, and there was not really a pitcher at times that beat me. And, I kind of was educated enough to, see what I did wrong in certain at bats and learn from it. And, like I said, the confidence level was as high as it ever was. So, definitely a little bit of an edge, maybe a little bit more of an edge over those high schoolers. But, I feel like as long as I keep that confidence, the sky's the limit.
Just to add to that, Maryland does a great job of developing players. Matt Swope was monumental with his development there, and really prepared him for these years. So I think that was really beneficial for him because he really took off the last 2 years. They do a great job with individualized plans to make sure that guys are doing the things that they need to do according to their body and their profile. So that last game that they played against Wake, he hit 2 bombs that night against Rhett Lauder, first rounder. The game didn't start till after 10 o'clock. So it was pretty impressive to see that against a top arm. And, a lot of credit to Maryland and the program and all of his hard work, obviously, but he followed the plan.
Listen, it's one thing to do it and do it again. You in your junior year, of course, 322, 15 home runs, 70 RBIs. I mean, you shattered those numbers. Those were decent numbers. Don't get me wrong. What did you do to prepare yourself that pushed you to another level?
I would just feel like, going over the stuff with Matt Swope and, like Joseph said, he kind of came up with the individualized and personal plan that worked best for my body and how my body likes to move. And, as we incorporated that from the fall, all the way through the winter and ultimately in the spring, it just took off to another level. And I was able to educate myself on a lot of different things that I didn't really know could help me generate more power and more, exit velocities and all that. But, just following that plan and, staying with my approach definitely helped.
So question, is it teacher man involved or?
No, not teacher man. He, it's funny. We had this whole like doctor kind of do a bunch of tests with us. It was some crazy stuff, but, I wish I could explain it a little bit better. He's actually coming out with a book pretty soon, and I'm pretty excited to read it because it's not only baseball players, it's, all athletes, all people, and how, their body likes to move and put themselves in positions that, their body's comfortable in.
Yeah, that's very important. I mean, I think people have to understand that not everybody can do the same swing. So when you see the teacher man, and what we're talking about, Jake, teacher man is the guy who his claim to fame is Aaron Judge. 6'7", 282 pounds, and every time he mishits a ball, it still goes out 314 feet. Not everybody can do that, right? So he teaches this style of swing that a lot of guys are trying, but they're becoming more and more unsuccessful. It's not something not everybody can do. So it's very important to find out what works for your body, the way you move, and capitalize on the things that you do really, really well. Because for hitting, of course, if you make out 7 out of 10 times, you're an all-star. So what you're trying to do is make sure that those outs are hard outs, and the continual hard outs get you, 31 game hitting streak?
That's right.
That's very impressive. The longest in college sports. Do you know what that is, Jake? Do you know how long that was?
Well, I wouldn't know a teacher man. I know the son of a preacher man, but I don't know what teacher man was. So that was like German to me, whatever you were just talking about, Figgy.
It's just a guy who came up with a style of swing, and it works for Aaron Judge and works for pretty much guys that are 6'7", 280 pounds.
Exactly.
Other than that, there's a lot of guys who've tried it and have actually gone backwards in their development. So it's great to see, that he was able to find something that works for him. But as I was saying, the longest streak, what was it? 58 games, right? Robin Ventura, yeah. 58 games. So 31 is impressive. Don't get me wrong. 58 by Robin Ventura. Shout out to the ex-Met Robin Ventura. So you're following some very, very, good shoes, big shoes to fill. And you're an infielder. What's your best position?
Third base.
Do you play second, first, short? Like if the Mets were to move you around right now, the Mets have Brett Beatty. We'll see if he's there, in 4 years or 5 years, maybe 3 years, whatever your time. I'll say 3.
Advanced. I'm already bumping him up.
All right, I'll say 3. But if Beatty's there and they need a second baseman, they won't need a shortstop for the next decade. But if you had to move, can you move around?
Yeah, absolutely. My playing days at Villanova, actually I was a two-way, so it was funny. I'd play third on Friday, pitched Saturday, then moved to first on Sunday. So, you know, I've definitely had all my experiences around the infield.
I was going to
And
say,
then obviously shortstop my entire high school.
Yeah. I saw you pitch a little bit. Are you Shohei Ohtani Jr.? I mean, you have the last name Lorusso, so you might be a karate kid too. If you know, if you ever watched that show, Cobra Kai.
No, it's not a show. It's a movie. Good
no, Cobra Kai on Netflix. You know, the new version with Daniel Larusso, the car dealership. So I don't think there's any relation there with a fictional character. But do you see yourself pitching, or was that kind of just a college, high school thing?
No, that was definitely a college, high school thing, and you know, I can't do it as well as I used to. But you know, I've focused on hitting, and I feel like that was something, you know, big when you talk about, you know what spiked the numbers up a little bit is I was able to, you know, mainly just focus on hitting. And you know, obviously being a two-way, you got to do both. You know, I practice all the time. It definitely takes a toll on your body and on your arm. And, you know, this year was definitely, you know, some of the best my body's felt in a long time.
Yeah, usually what happens is guys become POs. That means pitcher only. Yeah. This guy decided I'm just gonna, you know, MO, mash only. That's what I do. It worked.
That's right. That's right.
A day like today, all I know is BO because it was hot outside. We're talking to Nick Lorusso here on Amazin But True podcast for a few more minutes with his agent as well, Joseph Guzman. We got two Guzmans. We got the intern Nick Guzman and Joseph Guzman. The Guzmans being well represented. No relation, I don't think. We appreciate you coming on here. Let's do a little rapid fire here for Nick. Let's get to learn who you are. Let's start off with, who is your hitter comparison? If there's a major league hitter that you look up to or you inspired your swing after, who is it?
I would say Nolan Arenado. You know, that guy is as cool as it comes when you know, he's at the plate. You know, I feel like myself, I have a slow heartbeat, and that's something that my teammates and coaches tell me all the time, you know, in high pressure situations. And I feel like Nolan, he always seems so relaxed when he's hitting. So, you know, I definitely try to model my game after him.
You say defensively too, Nolan, or just at the plate?
Oh, both. Yeah, I'll do hitting and fielding.
Do whatever that guy's doing, chewing bubble gums, whistling, whatever he does.
Yeah.
Any superstitions you have?
No, I try to stay away from those.
Figure you got one for him?
Do I have one for him? If you could face, you know, since it's the Yankees that you grew up loving, if you could face one Yankee pitcher, who would it be?
All time, I would have to say Mo. He got it. I mean, people still to this day, I don't know how people just couldn't hit the cutter. And I just want to see it. I want to see it for my own eyes. I want to see, even when they knew it was coming, they still couldn't hit it. So I would definitely love to see that.
What's your favorite ballpark? You've been at Citi Field, you've been a Yankee, you've been all the local parks?
I have, but to this day, and my parents actually just moved out there, my favorite is Coors Field in Colorado. I feel like it's absolutely beautiful there. And, you know, obviously the ball flies and we love that as hitters, but it's definitely an awesome park and definitely one of the underrated ones, I would say.
If you weren't a big leaguer, what would you be doing? Or hopefully a big leaguer, I should say. But
yeah,
well, you said it right. When he's a big leaguer,
yeah. You know, I would have pursued, you know, my second love, which was football. You know, I grew up playing that, and you know, I dedicate, you know, some of my, you know, mental toughness and toughness on the field to that. And you know, I had one of our offensive coordinator coaches at high school when I played my senior year. He ended up taking, you know, a Division II offer and tried to get me to move over to his school as a wide receiver, but definitely something that I was proud of, and definitely something I would have tried to pursue if I wasn't playing baseball.
All right, what non-athletic job? Like, don't say Blake Bortles ripping stick doing construction work, like he said. What average man's job would you be doing?
Oh man, I don't know. Something in sales nowadays. Something with real estate. You know, I feel like that's where the money's made, man.
I like it. What was your degree in?
Communications.
Okay.
Take our job here, doing podcasts, I guess. Follow Nick on Twitter at Nick Lorusso 2 and Instagram NickL.44. Well, we're looking forward here to seeing your journey to the big leagues. Hopefully one day we'll pop a bottle here in the streets of Queens together and celebrate your trip to the big leagues. Listen, you got the experience, you got the bat, you put up great numbers. Now get to work. As Figgy was a guy that up and down for the minor leagues. It is a grind. So you're in for the grind. But if you kill it in the minors, there will be a spot for you here. And listen, if you're not at third base, there's DH now in the National League. So you got options here, and we're looking forward to seeing your journey, and good luck. And thanks to you, Joseph Guzman, Empowerment Sports Group. Thanks for setting this up, and thanks for coming on the show.
Yes, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you having me.
Pleasure.
Massac High School, Monroe, and the Bill. Did you ever go to Bill's Diner? Bill's Diner.
All the time.
We'll close it on that. Shout out to Bill's.
They have the Jake special. It's a chicken parm and a milkshake.
They don't have chicken parm there.
But a bunch of bacon, egg, and cheeses.
That's right. He's a New Yorker already, folks. Bacon, egg, and cheese. We'll close it with that.
Thank you, guys.